All right.
Oh man, there he is. My favorite Unk. My favorite Unk from way back. I feel like you were Unk status way before that was a word.
Man,
I was thinking about this today. I was like, you had a wisdom and I'm tripping on this shirt. You got the original.
it is the original.
I
It
don't
is
even
the
know what to
original.
say.
Yep.
I mean, it
I
still
even
looks.
got, hey, and remember I showed you the other day,
You
they don't know this,
did.
but I showed you the original sticker. And not only that, I got the
Oh, I'm
original
tripping.
mail-in, the newsletter. I got all that. But see, that was back when there was a time when we all really supported each other like
We
that. Like we
did.
were brothers for real. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Didn't really matter. We really was behind each other. So I
It was
think I
such a
got most of
small
this
little.
stuff from Crewvention, a lot of stuff from Crewvention 97 or something like that. Well, yeah, because I think that's what was kind of when we really first kind of joined. Would you say was then was and then after
Absolutely.
that we came, you had us come in and do a show or something like that?
Well, I think that convention, I was thinking about this week. I was like, that convention was so monumental for a lot
Yeah.
of ways. Like if there's ever been a documentary, it should be on that one moment. That's like our you ever seen that it's called The Great Day in Harlem picture where it was all the famous jazz musicians in one
Yep.
shot and they did a hip hop one, years later.
Yep.
I think that was like our Great Day in Harlem type shot,
Yeah.
but I think that to me was where, those that I looked up as heroes and admired for the first time you really got to like rub shoulders, rub elbows.
Yeah.
And I still to this day remember Coffee wrapped toilet paper around his head. And I think you brought him in a supermarket shopping cart.
It was Verbs in the shopping cart.
Verbs was in the shopping cart. That's
Yep.
right. Verbs was, and you had two DJs.
We
I remember
did.
that clearly. You had Madge and you had Form,
Yep.
which I was like, that alone was like super cool. And wasn't the joke that you guys found the supermarket shopping cart like in the parking lot or something like that?
Yep. Because we did actually. We was like, oh man, we should use this.
Yeah.
We were just trying to break up the monotony of you too cool for school because
Right.
guys was really serious about the craft back then. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
You gotta remember we had guys. It was not only with you guys and us, but we had those young guys like Remnant,
Right.
and then we had older guys like Apocalypse. Like we had
Yes.
we had a lot of guys that were like serious about their craft. They were serious about what they stood for, and
Right.
so everybody there was this like seriousness in the air. Everybody had to kind of stand for something, and so
Right.
our approach was we're gonna break the ice with we're gonna go out there and look silly and we're gonna do this and we started off with we started off with the foundation of old school hip hop. We did my
Yes.
Adidas, like that was like part of our intro just to kind of break the ice. Like, duh, we all here together to have fun. Yes, of course, we all know what we believe and we're gonna do that. But don't forget, you know what I'm saying? Like that was our approach to it. And I actually got the video of the intro when we did it. I got the video.
Nathan, my man Nathan Smart, who rolled with John's crew back in the day.
Yeah.
He has all those videos up still.
Wow.
I can't remember. I'll put in the show notes, but he's the only one that brought a camera that I remember like got so many battles, so many ciphers, so many performances. I know your performances in there. So I remember when you guys came out like that, never did I ever think it was goofy. I thought it was, I never thought it was theatrical. It just was like, it's exactly what you said. It was like, we're going to be unique to ourselves, 100% hip hop. Without any apologies. There was never a moment where you're like, hey, Coffee's got toilet paper on his head versus in it. It was just like,
right.
In my opinion, it was elder statesmen. Not that anybody was that much more elder, but I'm saying like it was elder statements that said this is why we're at this level, and no apologies for it. But what I loved about you guys, and I was always taking notes on your show, was that you guys always remixed songs that we knew over, an instrumental would just flip up in the middle of it and Form would just keep it going. There was just, you could tell you put time and effort into what you did.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I always appreciated it. I always took notes. I probably stole some of it at some point.
Hey, we probably stole it from wherever we got it from,
Right. What a crazy time too back then, 1997. It's a very unique time because Cross Movement was there, Tunnel Rats were there, LPG was there, John's original crew was there, the Boogie Monsters were there.
They were there. Yep.
Oh man, I'm trying. And then there was just tons of just groups that over the years, I remember I met your manager, who you guys called Doogie.
Dirk, yeah.
Dirk. I met
Yeah.
Dirk. I feel like I had been talking with him, and then I met him in the lobby. It was before you guys got there, and I was just hanging out with him, and they were playing Goody Mob's.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Everybody was playing it like a piano out in the lobby and just freestyling, whatever. And I remember just Dirk came in and was like, guys, we're going to get kicked out of here if you don't stop. It was just not that he was mean or anything. He was just like, always was like, he was like the Boy Scouts, like the guy that was only a few years older than you, but it was enough to be like, guys, we have to be still adults here. So like, let's keep it moving. But anyway, it's so good to see you. It's so good to talk with you. I was trying to think. I was actually going back in my head that I don't know if you'll remember this because I was just in the audience. You probably wouldn't remember this, but the first time I ever met you, and I just say I don't mean meet you guys, but like first time I ever saw you guys, it was 1995 or 96.
Okay.
Cataclysmic Circles. The first album. Cataclysmic was the first song. What's the first album? Mental Releases had just came out. You guys were out in the parking lot performing on a flatbed in Lakeland, Florida at Carpenter's Home Church.
Carpenter's Home Church, yes.
Petra was the headliner that night.
Yep.
And you guys were you a part of the tour or you were part of like a pre-show?
We were a part of that because Carpenters would do a show like that. Like every year they would have people come in. I think Petra was, and that was a part of Petra's tour. We were just invited to that particular show for the breakup of, because I think they performed inside of the church.
Yes,
and then they had, during the day, they would have bands, and we were part of the show that was outside on the flat.
Okay. Well, I remember that's really what I was excited to go see. I was a youth leader and just starting to rhyme, and I brought one of my kids, one of my youth there. Yeah. And he wanted to see Petra and the headliners, but I was like, I want to see Grits. And I remember, I had dealt with all the issues of Christian hip hop in the church world and just the constant, battling against mindsets and stuff. So I thought this was really cool that you were outside on a flatbed.
Yep.
And I think it might have just been you and Koff. Maybe there was a DJ. I can't remember.
Burbs was there. It was.
Okay.
It wasn't. We had. I think. Well, I don't think. I know for a fact. Was with us. Or Rick.
Okay.
Probably those who don't know, DJ Form, his real name is Rick. So if I slip and say Rick, that's because I'm used to calling him Rick. I don't ever call him Form. So I call him Rick. Coffee, we always call Coffee. And I won't say his name on it because he goes by Coffee. Right. So, but it was us and then Verbs.
Okay.
It was like the four of us. It was
I was right there up at the front. I'll never forget. Koff put the mic in the crowd to do. I feel like it was Cataclysmic Circles, whatever the song was.
Yeah.
Maybe I was the only one that knew the lyrics, or maybe I was just like feeling it so much. And I just remember, just spitting the verse, and he was like, and then it went on. I don't know if I met you guys that day or shook your hand or whatever, but to me, that was a huge win because I grew up in Tampa, also grew up in Lakeland. I was from Florida. I felt like I was always butting heads with Christian hip hop in Florida. It was such a challenge. They were always like, yo, you're going to rap in the youth group or you're going to rap down in the projects. Like, other than that, don't come near the stage. It's too holy. And, just seeing like Mental Releases to me was such a monumental project because it was very jazzy. It was very current to that timeline, in my opinion. Yeah. You didn't catch Christian rap live. I mean, it was really hard to catch a group. I had seen PID and maybe SFC like a year or two before when I was a senior in high school, but like seeing you guys up there to me was the biggest win. Like I didn't care about Petra. Petra was cool, whatever, but I was like, my day's made. And, that's just me as a fan in the audience as a 19-year-old. What was it like on the other side? Because, you guys started, obviously, I know you started as a DC Talk dancer. You started with Jesus Jamsters back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, what was it like
pre-95 was even shows like that? Because when we put our first album out, that was pretty much at a time where, now it's okay to get rap guys to come and do shows at larger charismatic churches or, contemporary Christian churches versus like, those that, are hardcore Pentecostal or whatever. Like that didn't come until later.
Right.
Through those years, but that was like right after us breaking off from DC Talk. So DC Talk had broken the ground basically for us to be able to come and do shows at the Carpenters, because for whatever reason, whether it was they weren't available or they weren't, they couldn't afford them or it was just something new. So
Sure.
for us, it was a lot of groundbreaking, man. We really went through the mud to do a lot of things. By the time, as you said, by the time we got to 97, uh, and Crewvention, we had already done a lot of things to get to that point to where it was like
Sure.
we did feel like somewhat elder statesmen because we had done and been in places that most of those guys hadn't been.
Who
Most of
who
those
was
guys didn't, orange shows and things like that, even on TV, because it was our first record where we got on BET. It was our first
Right. That's
record,
true. I forgot
you
about
know what
that.
I'm saying? And like things like first record where we got reviews in the source. So it was a lot of things that had happened, but we purposely wanted that, but we wanted it for everybody. And
Yeah.
of course, as there was a lot of dissension during those years,
There was.
from 95 all the way, even I mean, even honestly to me, even up until this day, it's like, y'all still having that argument? It's weird. It's weird. I'm like, man, all that stuff, I ain't do all this stuff for nothing.
It just proves that more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah,
What
yeah, yeah.
what what was the first, like, I was always curious, what was the first type of, I don't wanna say venue or lane that opened up for you guys? Because I was always curious about who was the first to embrace. Because obviously, there was so
Hmm.
many different lanes to run in, whether that was mainstream, whether that was, black church, white church, Pentecostal, Baptist. People
Yeah,
don't realize that there was 1,000 different spaces
yeah.
that you could find an audience in, but a lot of the spaces were shut off to Christian hip hop. So I'm curious about your space. What was the first one you're like, "Hey, this could actually work?"
The For us, and honestly, the was the Midwest. I'll put it that way.
Really?
Because what we found was our very first Grits concert was in, I think it's called Elkhart, Indiana, or something like
Yep,
that.
yep.
Very first ever Grits on tour. I think we were on tour with DC Talk or something like
Okay,
that. But it was our very first ever show. And the Midwest embraced us. But see, that was because we was riding off of the backs from people knowing us from
from
being
DC Talk.
dancers.
Okay.
So the blow had been soft and like, oh, okay, well, they're cool because they're cool. But it was the Midwest. And the Midwest
Right.
has always embraced us with a different love than the East Coast and the West Coast. Now,
Interesting.
secondly, it was the West Coast because what people don't know in the history is Verbs actually promoted us for.
That's
He
right.
was our very first ever promoter to call us and say, "Hey, I want Grits to do a show in Arizona." And
I
so,
I've heard of this infamous show,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And that's
and
how we
w
met Verbs. And who was at that show? It was us, Dynamic Twins. Dang, I don't want to be forgetting people.
was
Who else
T-Bone
was?
on this one?
I think T-Bone was there. It was T-Bone, and it was it was somebody else if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But it was different because even though those guys, I can't remember. I think maybe some of them had already had records out before us. They did. They had
Okay, yeah. The
records out before us.
Twins was one of the first groups I ever heard as a 15-year-old that
Yeah.
I was like, "This to me works." So to me, they reminded me like old EPMD,
Yep.
or
Yep.
they had a lot of like West Coast funk, but also like a East Coast sensibility.
Yep.
I see. Also, I always thought the place to get to was either Nashville or California,
Yep.
because I had no idea there was a whole circuit that you could perform in California of Calvary chapels,
Yep.
Victory Outreach
Yep.
churches, and they didn't separate what they consider youth music and adult music. Like it was just
Yep.
music. I didn't even know that. Like in Florida, I'm telling you this, like you are not from Florida, but you know what I mean?
No,
Like
no. I mean, but the listening audience, they don't know.
yeah, I mean, Florida to me was very separated, very
Yep.
behind the times. There was stuff there, but it was always relegated to like, oh yeah, you can come and do the juvenile detention center, or you can do
Right.
the tiny youth room in the back,
Right.
um, things like that. But long story short, moving ahead, I mean, by the time I feel like by 95, 96, 97,
Yeah.
Christian hip hop starts to become its own sort of ecosystem a little bit,
Right.
and you see things like Crewvention popping up
Yep.
here and there. And I remember it started in Orlando. I started going up to those, and you just kind of felt like, I don't know, it was a fraternity, but you kind of felt like you met
Mhm.
somebody else. You're like on the playground when you were kids, like, oh, you like G.I. Joe too? I like G.I. Joe. You want to be
Yep.
best friends? But
Yep.
then the other side, it was like, don't touch my G.I. Joe. So it was like a weird world of
Mhm.
like connection, collaboration, and beef. And
Yep.
egos, and there wasn't the internet. It was just starting, but it was just not enough that like you had social media, so you were so
Right.
excited for all of it. Anyway, I'm rambling, but the point being is, we move into around late 90s, And my frustration was, and I remember this clearly because I went up in 96. I went up to the Dove Awards and I went up with a fake press pass trying to get a record deal. I had a girl's name on my press pass and I was backstage at the Dove Awards when they were doing, the winners of whoever was the winners of it was always combined category.
Yeah.
Rap, hip hop, dance. And I was
Right.
every
Rap,
year
rock.
Somebody with like a 6-bar rap would win that wasn't even a rap group.
Yep.
And I thought this genre will never have legitimacy as long as Carmen keeps putting an 8-bar rap in his songs. And I remember sitting back there in the press conference with my fake press badge, and I was starving because I was a college kid, and I came up with $50, and I basically was eating the food back in the press conference. And this group won, who I won't say who they are, and they're like, how do you feel about, winning this category when you're not a rap group? And they're like, oh, our next album won't have as much rap in it. And I just threw down my press pass and walked out. That night, Coffee came over to the place I was staying at right after, and I never met him. He just came over and he was hanging out with a group of people that we were there with, which I barely knew anyway. And I remember thinking, like, will Christian hip hop ever actually have legitimacy? You know what I mean? Where the industry will not, acknowledge. And I think it was like the next year when you guys won your first Dove. Does that sound right? 97, 98? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, because we won by 97, we won our first Dove off the second album, which was Hopes and Dreams. I'm trying to see if that's what that is over there. But Hopes and Dreams and kind of What Be Going Down.
Is the album with plagiarism, right? It was that album?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. That was, because that record we had got to actually that was third. It was The Factors, basically.
The Factors of the Seven, yeah.
I
always love that cover.
Most actual Grits fans' favorite record is Factors, and I gotta say it's mine too. Yes, man, It's crazy. They're like, nope, Factors is my one. That's the one that brought me in, and that's the one that I fell in love with you guys. I'm like, wow, okay, which is one of my favorite records too.
It's a very different sonic shift from from first album to that album, because the first album, jazzy kind of vibe. I feel like by the time you hit it was a very unique sound. I mean, Todd was doing really unique percussion that I always thought the drum arrangements were not the typical boom, kick snare, whatever. I remember thinking that it was a unique album, and I loved the cover. I know I went out and bought it. I love the cover because it reminded me like the old Blue Note kind of like,
and with that,
jazz
we purposely did that.
That was intentional? Okay.
Because the first album was very much so centered in jazz, and that it was we did that on purpose just to kind of birth. Hence, one of the songs on that album is called Jazz, and it talks about the story of the birth of hip hop coming from jazz. And so
she died and revived. Now the child's going wild.
Exactly. And Factors was the answer. Was like, now we're moving into more. That's when like your more neo soul type of sounds start moving. Even in jazz, you start moving more into that lane of an expansion onto traditional jazz for those, So you had those different grooves, and that's where Factors came in at, with the different rhythms and the different, like, now let's start being experimental, but stuff that felt good, that was more vibey, I would say.
Yeah, and I always loved your live shows because you would take whatever was on the album and then mix it into something that, you immediately was like, oh, it's the, Put Your Hands Where I Can See instrumental.
Right.
And it was always seamless. It was always innovative. You never really knew what you'd get at a Grit show, in the sense of like, oh, you think you're going to get this? Yeah, we've already updated it from last time.
Right.
And I always loved the innovation, the innovativeness of that. And I just look back. I mean, it was a really, I don't want to say, maybe that's our Renaissance period of the golden age of Christian hip hop. I don't know, but it was very experimental, probably because there was no real rules. Radio wasn't playing Christian hip hop. There wasn't a ton of spaces. So it's like, just do what feels good, I guess.
Yeah. Because it was this, your testing ground was live show.
Right. It was about the live show.
Ground. You didn't have radio to go predict to you to say, hey, this is good or this is bad.
Right.
So all you had was festivals and whatever concerts you could book. So that was your testing ground. So you had no choice but to go with what felt right, what you felt like was, no, I think people will like this, But of course, we always were the ones that were like, well, I like this. Like, I
Yeah.
would buy this. That was always our mentality going in the studio. I'm not going to
Sure.
record or put nothing out that I would not buy. So,
Sure.
and that was just being true to as a kid growing up in hip hop. It's like
Right.
staying true to yourself. Who are
Absolutely.
you?
Who are
And put
you?
that in the music and then allow people to receive it or not receive it. And so we were free to do that. And Goatee was gracious enough to allow us to do that.
Well, the other thing I always kind of just I'm an observer, but it would be like you take this genre that has such an intricacy and such a history. Obviously, it's the language of Black and brown people, and it comes with very nuanced language that it speaks in code to those that understand it.
Right.
And so you have all this intricacy of, and it's the last American, music genre period,
Mm,
birthed by people that had nothing, that created something out of nothing. So you have all this that goes into hip hop, and then you're like, and also we're gonna do this in front of like small town youth group, probably white kids
yep.
that are just like, do you know Toby? You know what I mean? Like I always just thought like
Right.
everything is here, and yet it's probably gonna have to, and that's just music in general. But I always was like, do these kids really get it? Like, do they
Right.
understand the amount of time and effort and nuance and slaving that we put into over the lyrics and stuff like that? Did you
Yeah.
ever like at times feel frustrated from that? Was there ever a disconnect? Because that can make an artist very frustrated.
Yeah. I mean, I would say definitely it was a lot of frustration because we dealt with that.
Sure.
But as we pushed along, we found the pleasure in our thing was, okay, we're gonna win the kid that they brought with them. Because
Got
what
it.
what what we began to see is, okay, yeah, that, quote unquote white kid from youth group, he's now inviting his friend from school who's
Right.
totally a rap fan,
Right.
totally a hip hop head, trying to win them over to, in the faith. And he's like, no, you should come. So for us, the aim was always, we're gonna get that kid. The kid who
That's cool.
came here who didn't expect to hear "Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See" mixed
Right.
in with this other stuff, and to give him a feel of familiarity so that it
Yeah.
would help to legitimize what he was seeing,
Sure.
hearing, so that he'd be more receptive for whatever came after, whether that was meet and greet, and then next thing you know, we're talking, and now we talk about his family, and now we talk about,
Sure.
you know what I'm saying? Like for us, it
Yeah.
was
It's
always a
big picture.
mission to do it that way. And yeah, it was frustrating because we got a lot of flack for that.
I can
But
only imagine.
at the end of the day, I mean, we were on a mission. So it
Absolutely.
didn't, we were like, we knew we were going to get flack, and it's like, well, you guys don't play us on the radio anyway. So
So we might as well
yeah,
do what we want to do.
yeah. It was like
Sure.
we didn't have the opportunity to get, I would say, industrialized, like
Sure.
industry. We didn't get a chance to do that. So we always were on mission. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
We were missionaries the whole time for the
It's
most
cool.
part until the industry started to catch up a little bit. They still didn't catch up, but even though
Right.
that, then it got even more frustrating when we learned the
Sure.
business.
So here we are now in the late 90s. I think I had maybe just met you at Prevention, and I don't know if I met Dirk and got his number. I don't remember exactly
Yeah.
how it happened, but I know you guys were playing nearby. This is around 90. It has to be 90 because when I was getting married that week.
Yeah.
You guys were playing nearby, and I remember saying to Dirk, like, hey, if you need a place to stay, I just moved
Hmm.
into my apartment. You guys can come down and kick it. I know what it's like to try and save money on the road and things like that. And he was like, yeah. So I feel like I hosted you guys at my apartment. Was probably like only 2 more rooms bigger than this room.
Hey.
And I know I only had like maybe a TV, a box of CDs, maybe a couch and a mattress in that apartment.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know you guys as much as I was just like, hey, I know what it's like, the struggle of this.
Yeah.
But I never told you this story, but I had a plan. My plan was to get you on a song. And so my this is how I was trying to pull it off. I said, I'm gonna invite Jack Golden Child over, knowing
Yep.
that he had beats. He had made a beat that I was like, oh, this is Teron all day. Like it's like a dusty kind of bass line, really,
Hmm.
really bouncy percussion. And I remember bringing him over and just like, hey man, just come over and just like play the beats out loud. Like you just want to play the beats. And you were sitting in my one chair front by the door, and this rapper chillness, whatever. And I was like, oh, his head's bobbing. I got it. I think this is gonna be the song. I'm gonna ask him later on to be on this song. And I don't know, man. It was really, it's a very pivotal moment in my life because
Yeah.
you guys were very real people. There was no airs. I remember I was like, hey, anybody want to take the bed? Take the bed. You guys would not take the bed.
Yeah.
I think you slept in the chair.
Yeah. I probably did.
I think it was somebody slept on the floor, and I don't know, man. There was such a humility and normalness about you guys. Not that you ever were not like that, but I was like, oh man, like they're just trying to get shows and make it
Yeah.
happen and do their best, and they're regular people that love God and love hip hop, and they're trying to figure it out. And I don't know. I think to me it was an encouragement. I was like, man, maybe this can work.
Yeah.
And because we eventually did the song that I brought you over to do the show, you were performing in Tampa, and I brought you over to the studio right after the show. You were at one of the arenas. I think it was a Billy Graham event or something like that.
It was.
And you drove over to the studio, which again, you didn't have to do any of this. Recorded your verse. And again, I was just like, man, like I'm not a signed artist. I don't have a record deal. There's no reason for him to do this song with me. I don't even think I paid you because I don't think I had any money to pay you. And I just remembered, like, again, all those moments of kindness to me meant something that I tried to model going forward, for the rest of my time. It was because of that demo. Because of that song, again, this is me being slick. I'm telling you now. I knew I'd have to submit it to Goatee to get it approved, because I knew the legalities of it. I'm like, by submitting it, I can now put my demo in front of somebody.
Right.
And you were like, hey, send it to this person at the label. I sent it off, never heard back. Found out later that it was a fake number. He would never answer. Who was the A&R back then? I can't remember his name. McLaughlin?
McLaughlin.
Yeah. He never would answer he would never answer the voicemail. So I kept calling like, hey, I sent this in, was looking for, clearance. No response. Because of that demo, though, somehow or another wound up in a demo pile, which by the grace of God, Todd Collins eventually found, and I end up getting my first record deal. And I always trace it back to a moment of kindness from you that you had no reason to do a song with me, but you chose to. So I know I've said it before, but thank you, man, because you are a huge catalyst in making that happen. And that became Integrity on 7th Avenue.
You're right. That was the name of the song too, Integrity. But the reason why, I did it is because I believed in what you were doing. And I believed in what you and Golden Child were doing. Like and that's why I have the shirt. That's why I have the sticker. Like all that stuff is real to me because hey, when you've been doing this and have been a part of the industry, like it or not, like yourself and myself, when you're talking like 30 years and then you've garnered these relationships, like number one, I always learned I will never forsake those first relationships that embraced me before there was anything, before there was a before, the merch and before there was the Dove Award. Like I'll never forget those because you were genuine. And we came into the business very genuine. Like we were not industry guys. We were not trying to hustle people. We weren't trying to bounce this into my, my youth pastor job, into my now I'm gonna start a church. Like we didn't have that type of plan. Our plan was to present we strictly came in as musicians, to be honest, musicians, but very much so strictly directed to live our lives as men of God, period.
Sure,
we really were trying to keep that integrity about ourselves. But we wanted to do the music at the highest level that we could without it being something that we were prideful about or without it coming off like, like we're better than anybody. No, we were cool with everybody that was cool with us. And if they weren't cool with us, we just left them alone. We didn't try to, fix it and things like that. And even being like that, there still was people who you still end up with beef where you're like, dude, I don't have beef with you. I know you just don't mess with us. So I don't mess with you like that. You know what I mean? It's not even that. It's just that I'm not going to ruffle your feathers. If I know you're not my friend or you're not a friend to me, then no, we're cool on that. But like I said, you and Golden Child, y'all were genuine. And even at Convention, we met a lot of genuine guys that we just latched on to and just kind of went from there,
Again, I'm trying to describe something that is like, a long time ago, but at the time, Golden Child, aka Jack, was a teenager. Like I was in my early 20s. I was maybe 20. I must have been early 20s. He's still like 15, 16. And, he was basically a skate kid that loved, hip hop. And he'd be like triple XL pants, Wu-Tang shirt, you know, and maybe a little bit of a black scent, you know what I mean, when he would talk. And I always would crack up because Coffee found him so, I don't want to say hilarious, but just he would always be like, "How's Wu-Tang doing?"
Yep, I was getting ready to say that. He always called him Wu-Tang. He always called him Wu-Tang. But rightfully so, I mean, in his defense,
Man.
because son, you know what I mean? Son, that was the thing. That was how people actually, would talk, and it wasn't just Jack. It wasn't just now.
Right.
Just
We've
for the
all
audience sake, it wasn't just Jack. It was a lot of guys during that time that really took on that East Coast persona of hip hop. But in Florida, that's what we rocked with everything. But
we
we
did.
definitely had a large love for East Coast hip hop because that's where it began. So
Right.
so I got it. You know what I'm saying? And you're right.
You're Duval, you're Jacksonville.
Yep.
Right, which is a mixture of like
It's
Georgia,
very much a mixture
North
of
Florida,
that
East
and
Coast,
definitely Florida.
95 South also.
Definitely.
But I found an old video from that documentary that they shot around that time. It's called Next Level. And I'm talking on it and I'm like cringing so hard listening to like early 20-year-old Jonah just trying so hard to like, I mean, I guess maybe that's the problem with Florida is we never really could figure out what we were. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you pick something became your persona, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't, again, I mean, I guess it's the sins of your youth.
Well, I mean,
I'm just talking about myself, you know what I mean?
Well,
but
because you was everybody. You was everything. You know what I'm saying? Because
it was like clothing you put on. That's kind of what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we had a pick of the meal, you know what I'm saying? We went from, what they used to call from booty shake or Luke Skywalker type music to, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It was like an array of all types of styles because I think Florida uniquely has always been a center point for where all music was accepted. Didn't matter what coast you was on. That's why guys like the DJ Magic Mike from Orlando, he was selling gold records in Florida alone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Luke Skywalker was going platinum in Florida alone.
Right. Don't even bring up Jamponi though. You know, I mean,
I mean, and I'm not telling you guys to go research these because some of this music is going to go way. You don't need to be researching it, but the history musically kind of lends itself to that. And that's why Grits, me being from Florida, a Florida native, that's why we were so much so you couldn't pigeonhole us to one sound. Because we were birthed out of all the sounds.
And then at some point, Coffee's like, "Yeah, I'm from Iowa." I'm like, "Iowa?"
Yeah, that's where he was born.
He's like, "Yeah, I'm like from Cedar Rapids or something like that." I'm like,
what was it called? Osceola or something like that?
Right. And then Form is from Cincinnati and then Verb is from Phoenix. I mean, like it is really a amalgamation. And then Madge is from like Louisiana of all places. So like,
right. That's true.
It's literally almost every point on the map. Which makes sense that you would wind up in Nashville. The other thing real quick before I jump into the early 2000s is the other thing that really encouraged me was the fact that I knew that you guys toured like crazy. I was always obsessed with being a full-time Christian rapper. I was obsessed with it for years. I was like, it can happen. And then when I found out, like, I think all of you guys worked jobs when you were off the road. Like you're like, oh yeah, I work at Jamba Juice. Oh, I work at, this place, that place. It was never like embarrassment. It was just like, yeah, that's what I got to do. You know what I mean? To pay bills. And I remember thinking like there's no shame in being a working artist, like you grind when you can and you pay your bills and you provide for your family when you're not, and you try to make it work and you trust God with everything else in between. Because when I first got my first record deal, I thought it was just all going to fall in place. If anything, everything fell apart.
We all did.
It all fell apart. And I remember having to get a job every Christmas time and just being like having a record in stores and working like my Census Bureau training, and someone in the room is like, "Oh, you know who that is? He's famous." I'm like, you know what I mean? Like it was just such a such a weird time. Like I'm on my phone sales job on a 15-minute break doing interviews to promote the album, and just like what people thought we did versus what we actually did was this just crazy to me. But that being said, moving into the early 2000s.
Oh, we're gonna move into 2000s.
Yeah, I'm gonna move from the late 90s into the early 2000s because this to me now becomes I had a different connection with you guys. Oh my gosh.
All right, since we move into the thousands now.
I'm saying,
Let's get
my
this
man,
right.
that's
Let's
it.
get it right now.
By the way, side note, I always loved that Coffee would wear the merch from Grits at every show, not because he packed it, because he started running out of clothes and he would just start grabbing shirts on the table.
Dude,
Anyway,
it was, you know what? We learned that from dancing with DC Talk.
oh,
Because
really? To wear
in
the
the
shirt, to
beginning,
sell the
they would
shirt?
like kind of not make us, but it was like very much encouraged to wear the t-shirts.
Wear the shirt.
You know, we were like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, if I
Yeah.
like it, I'll wear it. But it
Yeah.
was like, for them, it was marketing. It was like,
Got it.
yes,
That
you
makes
know, we're
sense.
going to get you guys to wear it. And then that way it's going to encourage other people to wear it. And so
Sure.
once we figured that out, like,
Smart.
yeah, you got to do that.
See, you were
rock your
smart. You
stuff.
are, again, unk status, man. You were thinking, I didn't even think of that. I'm like, nah, I'm going to wear my triple 3X Pelly shirt that I've got at Marshall's on the discount rack. Can't wait to bust this out. I remember early 2000s, right? So this is around the era, I think I hadn't put out Pronounce 5-2 yet. I was still collaborations, but things were kind of on the up and up for me. Like I was finally turning the corner after my first record deal just falling apart and getting evicted and losing my car and all this stuff. And then collaborations was turning the corner. In fact, someone sent me a picture of this, and I remember what was proposed was to go out on tour with you guys, but I'll never forget this, is they were like, you have to bring out 2 rock bands. Like they were like, no package deal is going to work with 2 rap groups, so you have to bring out 2, you know, up and coming rock bands. And I just remember still thinking like, man, even though like Grits is finally going to headline and like they deserve this, I'm like, dang it, we still have to like play this game.
Yep.
Not that I had anything against the rock bands. I toured with rock bands, but I just remember thinking like, here we go again, you know, 5 steps forward, 3 steps backwards. And we did that first tour. And I want to paint the picture because to me, this is where, again, it's one thing to know somebody is to kick it with them. It's another thing to tour with them. It's another thing to be in the van with them, right? You actually see the dynamics, the culture, the intricacies of that group, et cetera, et cetera. And I think I went out by myself. I don't think I had a hype man for that tour. I think I went out just to save money. And I was in the van with you guys every day, you know, traveling. And, you know, it was actually encouraging because I think the show started at my church down in Southwest Florida.
Probably.
I think it did. I think that's where it worked out. And this is what I loved about you guys, is that this is right around the time when The Art of Translation drops, right? That album was out. And, you know, that album, in my opinion, started to take off for you guys probably bigger than anything. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like that was the first time you went from like Grits, the opener for, you know, oh, that's DC Talk's opener. Oh, this is, you know, this to like, no, they're their own entity, right? They're their own brand. They're their own thing. And Ooh Ah started taking off.
Yeah.
I remember, this is to me is such a fun memory, is I remember seeing it take off in real time.
Yeah.
And you guys were traveling and doing mainstream shows and then flying back to the tour, right?
Yeah.
You came back and you're like, oh, we just opened up for Outkast and now we're going to do this church show and then we're going to fly back out and do this like mainstream show. Never once did you disrespect one market for the other. Never once did you hold one up as better than the other. And that to me spoke volumes. Like you never let go of one or the other. You never used one as a stepping stone to the other. And we were still slugging it out on the road. I mean, there's a few tougher shows. One of the bands got kicked off the tour on that tour.
Yeah.
We don't have to go into that, but you know, I cherish those memories, man. Like that year, that tour to me, I look back on so many levels. Like I still talk about it when your name comes up. Like I still talk about that tour. I'll never forget Coffee saying when Lose Yourself came out, he's like, this is gonna be a classic. I'm like, that song sucks. You know, nobody's gonna like that song. I'm like, listen to the drum. He goes, dong, 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 dong. I'm like, this song's terrible. He says, you'll see. And can I just share a few things, my uniqueness of what I've learned about Grits that time I'm traveling with you guys? Okay.
Please do, because most people don't know these things about us. They have never experienced us outside of just listening to the music.
All right. So I'm going to start with one of my favorite memories of that tour was after every show, pretty much every show, because I'm a night owl and Cough, I'm not anymore, but and Cough was a night owl. So it would always be me and Coffee going to the Waffle House by ourselves. You always went back to the hotel room. I think, you know, it would just be me and Cough. And he would make me laugh so hard, a little bit of pee would come out. I'm just going to say it. Like he had this Waffle House waitress impression that I quote to this day. Her name was Dee. She loved Travis Tritt, but just stay in character the whole drive there. I don't know. That
Man.
was it. Are all these making sense? Like he would just
No, that
maybe
makes sense
verbs.
because
Do you remember
we
that
used to
the
joke
Waffle House?
we used to joke about that exact thing outside of that was like an inside thing. Cause we talk
Right.
about this and then, I'm gonna go outside and smoke me a cigarette after I get finished with this order in here.
I swear if that school calls me one more time, I'm gonna kill that boy.
Yep, yep. We would do because those are real experiences for us. We would really like encounter with
Right.
these type of people. So
Right.
we had a bunch of like different impressions. That's where a lot of our humor came from
Right.
was off the road and experiences
Right.
with actual people on the road. And then we just took it and that became our life and our little, our
Well,
comedic style.
when you meet you guys weren't like jokesters. It wasn't until you got to know you guys that these
Yeah.
jokes come out. But Koff would just do his D impression and talk about. Like, I swear that trap shit does something for me. Like he would just say these jokes, and I look forward to every night going to Waffle House, just me and Coffee. Like some tiny town somewhere where
Yep.
your check sticks to the table.
Yep.
And we'd come back at like 1, 2 in the morning or whatever. And, and you'd have to be back up early the next morning. Like it'd be like 5, 6 in the morning. You're driving everywhere.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that Coffee would eat a bag of chips at 5:30 in the morning from the grocery, from like the gas station. And like everybody, you go to the gas station. It was like the routine. You go to the gas station,
Yep.
gas up the van, grab something to eat. It's super early. Everybody's tired. So you might want to just sleep in the van, whatever. And you just hear this giant crunch in the back.
Yep.
And I just remember Rick being like, he would say it almost every morning. I can't believe you eat chips for breakfast.
Every morning.
It would be like chips.
And dude, that was a thing, trust me, because Rick was like, he was totally into like being in shape,
Right.
working out, like, you know what I'm saying? He was the first Cold Stone for me. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
Rick was like the first, he was always like that. And he would be so frustrated with Koff's eating habits. Cause he was like, dude, I can't believe you eat like that.
Yeah.
You're gonna be 300 pounds, He just would
like,
be so, and then I think some of it sometimes Koff would do it on purpose
just to
he
make
knew
him
it
mad.
frustrated, just to make him mad.
He took trolling to an art form. Like
First
he
troll.
not only had a response, everything, he always had he was so quick-witted that he was very observational, he's quick-witted, he's quiet, but he would be like always had a comeback, never
Yep.
mean-spirited, but just enough to make everybody laugh. I loved kicking it with him. But the other thing I remember, there's the third thing I remember, because again, you're in the van, you're driving for long periods of time, is again, me being like East Coast hip hopped out, very purist, very backpack, trying to figure out what it was. And then out of nowhere, can't remember if it came on the radio or you just put the CD in. It was System of a Down. You guys all knew the starter, and I'm like, clearly only the white guy likes this in this group. And I turn on, everybody is singing this song, and I'm like, y'all actually like this? And they're like, oh, yeah, man, it's System of a Down. And it made me go, maybe I'm too close-minded about music. You know what I mean? Like if Grits likes System of a Down, maybe I'm allowed to like other stuff.
Yes.
Again, just odd moments on the tour bus, but also tour bus being the van. And the other thing is your hospitality, is that I'm riding in the van, right? I'm one of the acts on the tour or whatever. Never did you guys ever be like, hey man, like you need to cough up money for gas or you need to drive or none of that. In fact, I remember I had to like almost be like, hey, can I pay for this tank here? Can I offer to drive? There was like a unwritten hospitality rule amongst your crew. Would you agree with that?
No, I agree. We definitely we believed in sowing seeds in people. Like that was a real thing. That was like part of our life style was, no man, I don't know what God has for KJ. He could go on to be way bigger than us. But while he's with us, he's our brother. And he get what we get. He eat, we eat, he eat. It was like we really embraced that mentality. And for those who had the privilege to experience that, I don't think they would say anything different from that. No matter who it is or whoever spent an extended amount of time with us, whether it's on the road, things like that. We definitely, and me, of course, being the leader, like that is what I spearheaded, was because I came out of that type of brotherhood.
Sure.
From the Jamsters. So, I mean, I understood what it meant to, yes, I am my brother's keeper and I'm going to take care of my brother because I don't know what his future might be, but I want to be a part of the good part
So
that
true.
when he looks back, he goes, no, man, that helped me, or this person helped lift me up and not hold me down, because we were being held down or
Sure.
held back in so many ways during those times. Even when it looked like success, the very opposite of that were really big battles that we were fighting. But we just, we tried not to let it leave that room or wherever it
Sure.
was, whether it was like I remember when you were talking with Ruben, the second interview with Ruben, and you got into saying how the booking agents start kind of slighting you,
Yeah.
slighting because they felt like your market wasn't big enough, and then
Right.
this other guy is bigger now, and it's like we've had so many of those battles that we had to fight, that we were like, dude, do you understand? We just came off a tour with Goody Mob, and y'all
Right.
trying to tell us that you can't book us for this because our market isn't big enough, but we just came from, you know what I'm saying? We just spent 3 weeks in New York. Which you wouldn't know because you're so concentrated in this industry, but we're trying to show you that, hey, you need to match the same thing so that now everybody could come through, but stuff like that. So, I mean,
yeah, you're it's like you're fighting for a space at the table that they won't give you, so you try to build your own table. So then when
right,
you're at your own table, they're like, "Hey, can we come over to your table now?" And you're like, "Well, where were you when
right.
I needed you?" You know what I mean?
I had a seat for you, but see, you didn't
Right.
show up, so I had to open it up. Like the story of the king who invited everybody to come, and then
Man,
his
and
own people didn't want to come, so he had to open it up to the people instead of
this.
his people inside of his kingdom coming to eat that he invited. So same thing.
So another moment that pops up in my head on that tour was, so again, I'm trying to hustle to pay bills. I'm out there by myself. I didn't bring a crew. I was rolling with you guys. So I was cutting expenses as much as I could because I had just taken a bath previously on so many lost tours and stuff like that. So for some reason or another, I was like wound up being like a World Vision sponsor advocate on the
Yeah.
tour. So every night I'd have to give this World Vision pitch.
Yep.
Really, and I wasn't particularly, familiar. I was trying my best, but like you
Yep.
get thrown into it. And I'm telling you, every night, because I'd have to work the World Vision table. I had to put the packets out with the kids and stuff.
Yep.
Every night, Coffee would come up and pick up one of the kids. He's like, "Y'all be selling kids, selling
Yep.
these kids. You out here selling these kids. Look at him." And he would just like make me feel so bad every night. Like, I get he's just teasing, but he would not let it go about like, you be selling whatever the names were. I don't even remember. Anyway, so I'm sure I didn't get many sponsorships. I was not a good, child sponsor. I was trying my best. I'm sorry, World Vision. Anyway, so there's that one. And I do remember one of the shows on there somehow or another. I don't know if it was just us. We were on the date, or maybe the rock bands played too, but it was an outreach in South Bend, Indiana. It was like out at like a pavilion or something. And this is probably early on the tour. Again, Christian rap, outreach, hood spot, whatever. And there was, you guys, there wasn't even a stage. I feel like it was just literally like a police line do not cross.
Yeah.
And it was, and we had a good crowd. It was a good show, but there was just this lady off to the side that was just the whole time Coffee was performing. She would just, I think she was homeless. She just was like, oh, cough the whole show. I couldn't stop laughing because as soon as it would get quiet, she would just say something. I don't remember what she said, but again, I don't know why that stuck out in me, because I'm just thinking like, there's nothing cool about what we're doing right now, because we're clearly, there's no backstage, there's no front, there's no stage period. There's just people and a police line, thing don't cross. And this lady is either clearly, anyway.
For the young generation, she was risen cough.
She was... But she was like, I think she was in her 50s. That's the thing.
Yeah,
she was
she was. She was
older.
Old
she was like, maybe, I don't know if she was homeless. I don't want to say she was homeless, but she wasn't there for the show. She had just either walked by, seen it, because it was like free,
it was
and
in
just
the
came up.
community. It was in the community.
Right.
Yeah. So she was just, for those who are, y'all Gen Zers, she was risen cough. So that's what it was.
But at the loudest points possible, at the quietest moments.
Right. When we're trying to be serious, we're out there, talking, or doing our, doing a presentation and talk about the work, giving testimony, whatever we were doing. And then she on the side like, ooh, ooh. And I think she even said, oh, he's so fine.
That's what it was. It was like, I'm like, this lady is clearly 20 years older than you, maybe 30, like mom status, you know what I mean? Anyway, I had done a ton of outreach, so it's like, I know that anything can happen. But the point being was, I just remember thinking like, well, clearly this is, I guess in my head, I thought, this is it. Grits and KJ, 2 rock bands. We're going to like finally have legitimacy. Oh, we're back in the hood. We're back playing for people that don't really know who we are. And, it is what it is. Anyway, all right. So moving on, I one last thing before we do this, I want to jump into a couple of topics because we could stay here for hours going through the chronology. Is I remember around that time again, I feel like it was on that tour. I was just turning the corner, but I knew I had a definitive idea that I needed to get in front of other audiences to kind of be able to do what I was doing. So I was really hustling hard, and I feel like I had flown out through the night to go open up for Plus One, which was like this Christian, music boy band, and then had to drive through the night all the way back to the tour, which was like 8 hours through the night by myself, rah, rah, rah. And this was such a grind time for me, you know what I mean? Even though it was finally starting to work, but I remember feeling tremendously lonely, like lonely in the sense of because I was out there on the road by myself, driving everywhere by myself. I missed my wife, and that's the other side that we don't talk about, is that the loneliness of the industry where you feel no matter how big the stage is, it still feels empty sometimes when you leave, right? It's like a tremendous high followed by a tremendous low. And I just remember going through, even though everything was going great and I was hustling hard and I was exhausted and I was going to make it, but just I was driving somewhere trying to get back to the tour all by myself in a rental car. And I'll never forget, I put on the album. Either I had it or I bought it or you gave it to me or whatever. And, I played Ooh Ah, which you have a line to this day is the reason why that song is in my worship playlist. I have a worship playlist on Spotify because you have a line that still chokes me up to this day. You say, my life be like bad characteristics covered in Christ's blood. That broke me. That line broke me on the road. I wept for 30 minutes driving. It became a worship for me because it was said with such earnestness and such, I could resonate with that. Like, I'm like, Lord, that's me. You said what I wanted to say. Like, that's the one thing I love about a great song is they say what you wanted to say, but you couldn't figure out how to say it. So I put on social media, like, hey, I'm about to interview Teron. What are some things, to ask him? And I would say 70% of the questions is about Ooh Ah.
Yeah.
That song to endure this long.
Yeah.
Was there something special going on in the making of it? How was that song made? Did you start with the hook? Did you start with the verse? Was it the lyrics? Was it the track? I mean, that is my favorite album. My favorite album is that album. And I don't know if it's because you had Serban Ghenea, mix it and it sounds phenomenal.
Hey,
I don't know what it was.
He had a lot to do with the way it sounds, like the output, like how it came out.
I'm just a fan right now. Tell me about Ooh Ah. How did it start? How did it come about?
Ooh Ah, the unique thing about Ooh Ah was one, it did start with the track, and it really started with the piano. The piano melody. That was, and for us, for those who don't know, tradition, like we never sampled. We always played. So everything is always played and originates from an actual person playing and coming up with that line. Typically, whether it was Rick, DJ Form, or Otto Price, who's Sugar Bear, for those who kind of know him, bass player. Like, those are our two kind of really mainstay, and Mo Henderson in Jacksonville, out of Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, Mo.
Like, those three, aside from Todd at Goatee, that's who've always produced our music and produced with us. Like, we were always a part of the process. It wasn't where they just kept bringing us tracks and bringing us tracks. They would do things and then we would build on top of each other's. Ooh Ah started with walking in the studio one day. Otto was playing this on the piano. He was just playing it. We were getting ready to record or do something, and he was playing this melody, and Koff heard it, and Koff began to sing the hook. He just singing the hook like, oh man, wait, keep playing that? And he's like.
So he came up with that first?
He came up with that first.
Not words, then, just melody.
Not words, just melody. And then he started to put words to it. And then, so he was like, hey, you know what? Yeah, man, give me a copy of that. So I think Otto ended up, he's like, yeah, I'll send it to you. He ended up doing a version of it enough for him to write to for that night.
So it was just a piano. That's all it was. Wow.
Yeah. Sent it to him. The
Wow.
next day we come back, then Koff had a hook and Rick had a beat. You know what I'm saying? And so it was like it just came together organically. The thing about that time was that was during a time where we were really in just this very particular place. Koff and Rick and at the time our manager Jay King were all working at the church. You know what I'm saying? Like we were all hustling, working at the church, and I wasn't working at church. I was roofing. So I roofed
Wow.
for 14 years throughout my whole grits career. Of being in grits for 14 years, I was roofing. I was a roofer when I would come
It's
back home.
crazy.
And so I was roofing. They were doing that. And so we were going through very, very in personal life,
Mm.
those harder times that you were kind of hitting to, like people don't know that when you're gone and you're feeling lonely and so especially with me and Rick, one of the reasons why we always kind of had something going, because we had families like
Right.
yourself. You were married. Well, we had kids. So
Right.
I couldn't afford to depend on what I could do with grits. I
Right.
had to make sure I came home, took care of my responsibilities, make sure they was fed, make sure they could do what they need to do when I'm gone to make up for what I wasn't making or getting from grits.
Plus
So
you're splitting the pie 3 ways.
plus she's splitting the pie. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And the pie meaning show money, not
Right.
royalties, because
Not
none of us
royalties.
was getting royalties
Nope.
at that time. That
No.
didn't exist. You know
Right.
what I mean? We all was recouping something. But it was a very special time, and ooh, I came out of a real place because
Wow.
that's what it felt like. It felt like when I wrote that verse, and I wrote it in one whim. It didn't take me like 2-3 days. I come and piece it. I wrote it in one whim, and that's what I felt like. I was like, I'm not even trying to rap. I'm just gonna write out
I'm
how I
thinking of you
feel.
I'm thinking of your first line. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. The fear of never falling in love
Yep.
or
The tears after losing the feelings of what you thought love
uh,
was.
Ooh.
That came from
Oh,
struggling in hip hop because that came from both sides. There's a duality to it. In all of our writing, when people go back now, when you go back and listen to our stuff, there's a duality in every piece of it. So that was something that was physically going on business wise, the fear of never falling in love, the fear of, man, I won't make it, this dream that I'm in love with, to do this music, and then losing the feelings of what you thought love was. Like losing the feeling, man, I thought it was gonna
oh,
be
I'm getting
this.
chills right now.
I thought it was
Like
supposed to
the
be like this. And then
dirt
you
swept
lose
up
that
under the rug.
feeling, and then, and then you push all that under the rug. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like it was a purposely written out to be a story that people can relate to either way. So that if somebody who was not in the faith, they know what it's like to lose the feel. They know what the feeling of never falling in love is. That's loneliness. They know what
Yeah.
that fear is. So what do you do when you fear never fall in love? Well, you chase after everything else that you think love is. And you grab and latch onto that and you pull that into your life, and then losing the feelings of what you thought love was. Well, when you find out it's not what you thought it was, then now you're like, oh, I mean, you're really broken. And that's what
Yeah.
you ever been broken to the point in your
Yeah.
life where you didn't know what to say?
Yeah.
Where you knew that if I could pray, but I don't even have the words to pray. That's the essence of ooh, sweeping up under the rug, things
Well,
that
that'd be like
you dirty is like somebody coming to your house and you sweeping dirt up on the rug. So when they come in, all they see is what's clean. They don't, if they lift that rug up, they're like, oh my God. You know what I mean? All of
that
that is what that is. And so I think that's why it resonated with people outside of that. But that is the essence of the making. That's how we
the
came up with Ooh Ah, because we ourselves were going through those exact
sure.
moments and feelings at the time. Cough. His first line is, I'm on an island by my lonesome stranded, low key staying candid. I'm high. I'm on an island by myself. I'm low key. I'm staying candid. I'm keeping it a secret that I'm this alone in this big place. I have the world in my hands, but I'm alone. And I'm hiding that from everybody because what they see is me in paradise. When you think of an island, you think of like a rainforest and
Right.
trees, beautiful animals, and the ocean and the beach. It looks beautiful, but I'm lonely out here
Right.
and I'm feel stranded in this place. And so that's
Are the
why
things I used to try my hand at, reflecting on the something. He would always like jumble his words a little bit.
reflecting
And I
on the
would
things I tried my hand
hand
at,
at.
basically the same story that
Right.
I
It's the same
told,
story. Yeah, it's 2 different
but
versions of the
in a
same story.
different version, you know what
Right.
I'm saying?
So,
So it's go ahead.
yeah. Well, we could say that in this genre, there's only a few songs that have, one, stood the test of time, two, have been infinitely bigger than the genre and that have touched the human experience. And, if the song ended at your verse, like, I'm good. But the fact that, Toby jumps on at the end,
Yeah,
which, I always, again, so much respect to Toby. Like, none of us sits here without his pioneering work.
that's true.
But I remember seeing that and thinking, like, is this gonna work? Like, is this actual
Right.
feature, like, gonna work? Because I don't think he had ever appeared on anything. Well, probably the old goatee night out type stuff maybe he was on, or the erase stuff, but that was always him bringing you guys into his world. You were bringing
Right.
him into your world, which I
Yeah.
remember seeing it and going, I don't know if this is gonna work, right? And I
Right.
and I remember, obviously, Tommy Mac, ooh
Yep.
ah ooh, dum dum diddy, comes a boy from the capital city, last up on the grits new ditty, and then he's so uniquely himself
Yep.
that it's not anything else except for him. At It's the parts of Erase, the Erased album, that I loved, that he would always
Yeah.
do, that he's not making apologies for anything else he is. And it's just like, it's like the perfect ending to a great sentence,
Yeah.
right? It's like the exclamation point on the sentence, or the dot on the sentence, or the pause on the sentence. And I remember just, again, I give you guys props, because that's what I always wanted to do, is to be able to write something that goes way beyond our little genre. And I think it's
Yeah.
because of you just telling me right now, the fact that you were just speaking from a broken place,
Yeah.
that you wrote what was on your heart. You had no inclination. And then I got to watch it every night, live. I got to watch that song every night. And I would just be like, I probably was too proud to be like, yo, man, this song made me cry, man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of going through stuff too right now, Anyway,
Well,
so
I will add on to that, especially on the Toby part, where I want people to understand is that on the business side of that, I personally was against Toby being on the song,
really,
because Toby has always been, ever since I've known him, and especially as in the industry, he's always been, bigger than big.
sure,
So business wise, I did not want him to feel like we
he had to
were
carry it.
mooching
Really,
off of his shine to
wow.
make the song bigger.
Hmm.
So, and I think, to be honest, and I've never said this in any other interview, but just to be totally candid and truthful, because that's just the way I am and upfront, I think
Absolutely,
that it almost caused almost a division
really,
between him and us. Like, he was thinking that made him maybe feel like we didn't think he rapped good enough to be on the song. But
really.
it never was that. It was that we did not. I brought it to the table. Coffee agreed with me
Mm.
and was like, "Yeah, you're right. People gonna think that we trying to get him on the song to make the song bigger." And our argument was, the song is big by itself. We don't need Toby on the song to sell
Mm.
it to people.
Mm.
And the label was like, "No, we need Toby on the song so we can have a reason to sell it."
Which he's the label too, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So, but even in that, the lesson in that is that I fell back. Coffee fell back. And we allowed him to do what he needed to do on the song. And I think the lesson out of that is, when you get out of the way and you allow what needs to happen, when you're able to remove yourself from it
yeah,
and say, hey, and remember that, hey, this is not mine. And that was the
right,
reminder that I had to get in that was,
wow,
this is not my song. This is
sure.
something that was a gift that was given to us. And this is for everybody else. So we got to
It's
give this
powerful.
away. So we can't hold on to it like that, because this is not mine. Yeah, I help be a part of it, but in the essence, this is God's. This is his. So if he wants Toby on the song, then I need to get out of the way. And so we
Takes a
did
lot of
that.
dying to ego to do that.
It's a lot of dying to ego,
And
because
we as
but
rappers are known for dying to ego.
Right. And then when you couple that with what we were talking about earlier, the struggle of trying to find your identity in this
Right,
space that people weren't trying to pay attention to you, then it was even more. Now,
sure.
all that to say, now you're looking at the biggest song that he's ever been on or a part of in his whole catalog.
Really? Yeah,
Whole
it's true,
DC Talk
because it's
catalog.
in the billions of streams, right?
Exactly. It's the
Wow.
biggest song he's ever been a part of
I didn't know
outside of
that.
Toby. It's the
That's
biggest
crazy.
song, of course, that we've ever done. But not only that, it's the biggest song in the industry streaming wise. Like overall the groups.
People forget
Still,
that.
still is the
People
biggest
forget
song.
that.
Now I don't say that to flex. I say that to say what I started off saying was when you get out of the way
Yeah.
and you allow what needs to happen, when you're obedient. Let's do that. I try
Yeah.
not to be preachy, but to be in all honesty, when you're obedient and you step back and humble yourself and say, you know what, it ain't mine, let me let it go, then that's what happens. And it reminds me every day until now why we did it, why we started, and it keeps me humble. And I don't feel like I have, there's no ego, there's none of that. It's like,
Sure.
no, I was able to be a part of something to say mission accomplished, to go beyond, starting off and doing demos and sleep on the floor and to go beyond that to now to be able to go to where I've met people who don't even know who I am,
Sure.
but their phone has my ringtone in it.
Right.
And I never tell them that hey, that's my song,
Sure.
because I learned how to let it go. And I learned how to say, man, thank you. It's a humble reminder, not a flex. It really
Sure.
is a humble reminder because remember, Goatee never released it as a single.
Crazy.
They actually refused to release it as a single. They never shot a video.
I know. That to me is nuts.
Now, I think part of that, there was some politics in there because
Sure.
as much as Toby is our brother, Toby
Right.
signed to a whole nother label.
Right.
You know what
He's
I mean?
competing against himself.
He's competing. He's signed to somebody else, and whatever. If they say he can't release it, they don't want him on the single. Then
Right.
that's how it goes. He
Right.
can't, finesse that.
Sure.
And for us, part of our frustration was you need to fight for that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like I said, we had to always remind ourselves to let it go. And without it ever being a single, no video, it's always since the day one has been the biggest song that we do live in concert.
Of
That's the
course.
one song people
Of
wait
course.
for.
Of
They
course.
wait for it. And I'm like, why didn't we do this as a single? And it's a quiet reminder. It's like the Lord's like, because.
God knows.
Because
You
if
can't.
if you would have did
Yeah.
it as a single, then the label can take claim for it. If you would have promoted it, then you would take claim for it. But because it's happening in a way where it's doing it on its own, then all glory goes where it needs to go.
So did you know at the time? I mean, this is a classic question. Did you know? Like, did you walk away from that song and go, something special about this? Or was it just like, oh, this album, there's something special about this album? Because there's a couple joints on there that I like. Again, it's my favorite album because it's an odd mixture of commercial, songs that are very true to who you are.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact you guys work with Serb Ganea, like at the
Yeah.
time, I didn't realize, like, man, like this is like going to be one of the number one mix guys forever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Historical.
he's doing this, this album. I was like, sonically, I remember hearing it and being like, there's something different about this album. So that
Yeah.
being said, like, was it at the time, like, did you know? Did you think? Did you guess? Did you hope? Or was it just like you were pleasantly surprised?
I would say at the time, I knew.
Okay.
I did. I was the
Yeah.
one who really, really believed in the song. Off didn't like the song because his voice, he didn't like his way his voice sounded on the song. So, in all
Oh, man.
honesty, I was really the one that was like,
You were
man,
fighting
this
for
is
it.
a big song. I'm like, this song is going to be big. It's going to be big. I was thinking it was going to be big based on what we did with it.
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
knew the potential of the song from a business standpoint. Like, no, this
Sure.
could be huge. Man, we got Toby on there. If we
Right.
do this, this, and this, and this, we shoot the video, we put the single out, it's radio friendly, it's da da da
Right.
da. Man, this could be huge. And it wasn't that I was wrong,
Yeah.
but that wasn't the way that it was meant to happen.
Sure.
And so Coffee didn't want us to even release it. I had to fight with Coffee, not fight physically, but I had to fight with him. I had to really talk him into, hey man, doing what I did. Let it go. Let it go.
Again,
And,
I'm just a fan. I'm just like I was in '95. I'm just a fan in the crowd.
Yeah.
When I hear that come on, they play it at my boxing gym that I go to.
Yeah.
And it comes on. I'm slugging away on the bag or whatever. I'm like, I know those guys. But I'll be like, but I'll still listen to the song and be like, it's a very blatant Jesus song. Like there's nothing about that song that's like, we were just doing a fun song and took off and because it's clean. I mean, like it's a heartfelt prayer of, eating. I don't know if Coffee likes this or he feels teased about it, but just, swiping the snot on my sleeve. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like he's saying drastically, but it's a heart of repentance. It's like saying, I feel broken over the things I've done to the
Yep.
point that I'm crying like a little kid and I'm wiping the
Yep.
snot on my sleeve,
Yep.
and I don't know, man. Like I think about that and I just think like when that comes on, I'm like, man, it's just another testament to the power of music, power of God.
Yeah.
It's like probably what we all dreamed of when we started off doing it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
25 years ago, crazy.
I can totally be, I can literally I am happy with my career in grits,
That's
and
awesome.
that song is a wrap up. And that song definitely help encompasses that because it's still going. It
Sure.
goes without us having to do anything, but I
Yeah.
like it that way because I don't want any of the credit and I don't want any of the glory for whatever is going on with that song. If it
Sure.
becomes it's a hip hop hymn,
Yeah.
that's great. Just know that I'm just thankful that I had enough grace and mercy on my life to be a part of it.
So great.
Because I don't feel like we deserve it. They're now I'm not gonna lie and say that there weren't times I didn't feel like we deserved it
Sure.
because because only I know and a little bit of the work we put in, but I also had to let that go too,
Mhm.
and I had to come back to that place of, hey, it's not mine.
So here we are years later, obviously.
Yeah,
I'm gonna wrap in just a minute here because, but I wanted to say, a lot of times we talk about this, the trajectory up, right? The struggle, the
right.
fight, the hitting the top, the getting the Dove Awards, the having the record breaking song. We always want to talk about that, but I think we fail to always tell people the whole story. I've
Right.
tried to be honest. People go, "What do you do now?" Like, well, I've been a pastor for 6 years.
Yeah.
I had to look at what the next steps were of getting off the road and raising my
Yeah.
kids, you know what I mean, and things like that. Not that it stopped me from doing music, but I'm just like,
Right. Right.
it's like being a professional athlete. Like it has a
Yeah.
shelf life.
Yeah.
Was there a point where later on where, in spite of all this success, where it just kind of got to the point where you're like, hey, it's time to exit or it's time to move on or it's time to, I know you live in Minneapolis now, right?
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you
I'm in
still there? Okay.
Minneapolis.
So that's a big shift. I mean, like,
Well, actually, and I live outside of Minneapolis. I
okay,
live in a country. I live in a little small township. It's kind of like Dave Chappelle. It's like I live in a town population 5,000. You know what I'm saying? Like literally, I can honestly say that I'm probably the only African American family in my township.
got it.
And it's day and night, but it's peaceful and it is a completely different life from,
Mhm.
what I've known before, and especially from Nashville, because it's total opposite. Nashville, a lot of noise, a lot of busyness, a lot of
Right.
that. Where actually live, it's the complete opposite. I mean, dude, I raise chickens, I'm getting goats this, coming up year and getting some ducks and,
Look at
like
it.
I'm in a whole nother totally,
Was there a
mind
point
frame.
was there a point where you're like, "Hey, grits will never end, but it's time to move on," like, the
Yeah.
writing's on the wall? What year was that around where you were like,
I would say 2000, maybe 2012. Remember,
"Really?
2010 is we're the only group on GoT to live out our actual contract.
Wow.
So 2010 was the end of that contract that we signed with GoT.
Gotcha."
Did 12 albums with them, and then we did 3 albums. Well, we did less than 12. We did like 9 albums with them. We did 3 albums without them. And 2012 was the end of our like 3-year deal we did with Sony
Mm,
for an album called Quarantine. Well, the first one was Reiterate. Then we did Quarantine for those two kind of projects. And so around that time is when it just I needed to exit music as a whole. I needed to exit Nashville
okay.
as a whole. That didn't peak until about
Really?
because after about 2012, I went through about 4 or 5 years of what I would call spiritual depression
Wow.
from the effects of being the guy in grits or being a part of grits, being in the industry, the letdowns, you know what I mean?
Right.
The feelings of betrayal, you know, especially when you go through that process of you're looking at people who you had Bible studies with and who pray for you and hey brother and this and then now they're telling you to your face you have no more value.
Yeah.
That it's hurtful,
Sure.
especially when you never did it for the practice of the business. You were coming from a real place in your heart. And
Right.
then they're like, yeah, yeah, we ain't got no interest in you. And it's like, wait a minute, I thought we had this covenant. I thought y'all was for the cause. And it's like,
Right.
nah, we're just here for the business. Your name's not ringing loud enough anymore, da da
Right.
da. Or to see people purposely make sure your name wasn't ringing loud enough, so because they have other interests that they want to
Sure.
bring in, you know what I mean? When the booking company signs the new guy that's hot right now, and then they, like, you had that conversation with John, and they purposely suppress you because this guy is, well, people are talking about him, and it's
Right.
like, yeah, but we got history, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I helped you get to the place where you would even sign this guy, you know
Sorry.
going through those are real pains that
Right.
I don't think people recognize, that can send a
No.
person into a low place. And I will
Absolutely.
say I was in a very low place for about 4 years, and I had to leave Nashville because if I didn't, I knew that it was going to consume me. And I knew that I was going to end up possibly even destroying everything that I had, wanted to be a part of, that, just I didn't, I was going to get to a place where it was like, it wasn't going to be pretty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was that really depressed. I was really that, and I didn't recognize it. I just thought, I was just like, no, man, it's
Right.
just, I wish this was going
Just
right. But
power through. Right.
yeah, yeah, I'm just gonna power through. Suffering in silence, as I've heard it said before. But no, I was really in a real depression, spiritually and everything, and not just from the industry, but from the church mostly.
The
So
tough thing is, like, because music industry is always you're always reinventing, and you always feel
yeah,
like you're up to bat and you could get another hit. It's an
yeah,
addictive problem because you feel like, "Well, I'll just write another song. I'll just get another hit." And then before you know it, you're like, you're self-doubting and you
yep,
nailed it. I probably went through the same thing right around the time I got out, which is 2019, 2020,
yeah,
moving on to the church. And I spent the first year walking through, COVID here as a pastor
yeah,
and anyway, we could talk about this forever. I thank you so much for your time spent, man.
yeah, man.
Again, I'm still a 19-year-old in front of the flatbed, staring up at you guys, being like, yeah, man, I'm still the guy in the apartment going like, man, they're sleeping on my floor. I'm still the guy in
Yeah.
the car watching Coffee Crunches Chips. I'm still gonna always be the one crying in my car, driving like he wrote the song I wish I could have wrote. Anyway, I'd love to stop and just pray, and then I'm gonna wrap. I'll put this out. This will be out Sunday. But do you mind if we just pray together and that way? Does that sound good?
Yeah, 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 definitely.
Okay.
And I wanna I'll just end this too, and you can clip it however,
Okay.
just so that people know where I am now
Yeah.
is I'm in a better place.
Praise
And
God.
it took the move to Minnesota to do that. And
That's
it helped
awesome.
heal, not only it helped heal me out of that space, but it did wonders for my family. You know
Let's
what I
go.
mean? Like, it helped to rebuild my relationship with my wife and my sons and my older children who were in Nashville, but now they're, one is still there and one is moved to Tampa. My daughter, I'm so proud of her. She's a practitioner, so she's basically a doctor, and her husband's a paramedic. So it's
Let's
like
go.
I've been able to, ever since I made that move, it's kind of been like, the children of Israel leaving Egypt, and I have prospered. I
That's
have ever
awesome.
since then outside of that, and I'm in a way better place spiritually, much, I would definitely say, stronger, and I have the fervor that I had when I started
Love it.
for on that mission. I still have that fervor, and I didn't I didn't allow that depression or that time to pull me to a place where now I'm separated from him and his
It's awesome.
promises. And it hurts me to see some of our counterparts we came up back then, who are in a completely opposite place. They don't even
Yes.
believe no more,
Yes.
you know? And so that's what I want to make sure that, people understand, like, yeah, yep, I did go through a time. Yep, I went through a time of doubt and unbelief, and almost to the point where I don't even want to do this no more. But I had to do, once again, as I kept saying, let it go. I
So
had to
great.
get to a place where I had to let it go. And now my life be like, it's literally, that's what my life is like right now.
Bad characteristics covered in Christ's blood.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, Father, thank you. I thank you for Teron Carter. Lord, I thank you for what you've done. I thank you for what you've done in Cough. I thank you for what you've done through Grits, Lord. Just the legacy of just constant consistency. That is why we will stand up someday and we will earn a crown, not because of anything we did, because of what you did. I thank you for years of friendship, and I believe, God, there's even more. I pray a blessing over his farm. In Jesus' name, his family, and I thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Yes.
All right, my man. Appreciate
All right,
you,
brother.
Great catching
hey, man,
up.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah,
Tap that chicken on his head. Tell him I said what up.
All right, it's 19 of them, so
there you
I'll
go.
have to figure out which one I want to tap.
I'll send you